Real quick to be featured in the next video, comment stackers if you've ever been stacked on in Call of Duty. We're going to start out with my personal favorite, which is the H4 Blixen. Now, go with every single attachment on here just because this is ideal for everybody. We're going to start out with the recoil booster for the increased fire rate, and you get a slight reduction of accuracy, which won't even matter. We put on the Carlson 17-inch custom for the aim, walking movement speed, firing visibility to enemies, and horizontal recoil control. Vertical recoil is slightly reduced, but trust and believe we will fix that. We put on the slate reflector for, trust me, it'll be a better vision. I think that if you decide to put on anything else like the Magnus CZA, you probably will actually miss some shots that you would more than likely hit with the slate reflector. I put on remove stock for the movement speed, different fire speed, and aim down sight speed. You get flinch resistance reduction and recoil reduction, but you won't honestly notice that too much. Put on fleet for weapon swap quickness and movement speed, and quick for sprint speed. Put on grooved for aim, walking movement speed, and accuracy, which already fixed the recoil booster. And then we put on the 7.62 Gorenko 54 rounds. Just for personally, I don't think I've noticed the difference between the 36 round and the 54 round, even though it says on the 36 round that increases torso damage. I haven't really noticed much of a difference between the two, so I think that the 54 round is better, especially you'll have more ammo, and it does increase headshot damage. Look at the recoil control and accuracy increase, aim down sight increase, and the maximum ammo capacity. You see a bullet velocity range and bullet penetration reduction, but we fix that with lengthen to increase the bullet velocity. And last but not least, we put on the SG98 compact for the aim, walking movement speed, and this is the ultimate H4 Blixen speed build. It also is basically the fastest TTK SMG in Warzone at the moment, so trust and believe you do want to use that. We're going to put on the NZ41 next, and we're going to use the MX silencer. Try not to use the other ones unless you absolutely have no choice. MX silencer is the second thing you unlock. Sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, vertical recoil control, and damage range. We get a slight reduction of aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed, which is no big deal. We put on the Lure MK1 burst. Now you're thinking, why would I want to use the burst weapon? Now here's the thing, this can switch between fully auto and burst, and for the time being everything else is highly accurate and controllable, and damage range increase. Now you switch it to fully auto, and this is very much OP, so you want to use this before they patch it, which they probably will, unfortunately. Put on the SVT 40 PU scope just because I think this is ideal for ARs of the Vanguard variant, or Weaver, EPAC for the recoil control, recoil recovery, accuracy, and flinch resistance. Put on brace for increasing the initial firing recoil, and fully loaded just to have as much ammo as possible on your gun. And if you don't want that, put on hand for the increase of aim down sight speed. Now I chose stipple grip tape just to increase the recoil recovery even more, and initial firing recoil, so this thing is a practical laser. If you guys remember the STG, this is on par with the STG in terms of recoil control, but has more damage. Now I put on the 6.5mm Sakura 50 rounds. You see the recoil control and accuracy, fire rate, movement speed, get slight reduction of bullet penetration and range. We fixed that with lengthen, and it increases the bullet velocity. Last but not least, we put on the M1941 hand stop for the recoil control and accuracy, and this is the strongest AR in Warzone right now. I think that this is honestly a top 5 weapon for Warzone in general, and it's not 5, 4, 3, 2, but 1. Trust me. So we're gonna move on to another weapon which I think people forgot about, and that is the Kar 98 from Modern Warfare. It's a very strong sniper still. It just, you know, I have to use it within range. Now if you're not a close range to mid-range type sniper guy, then this may not be for you, but this still will headshot you within 50 meters. So I put on the Singard custom 25.1 inch for the damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. Then I put on an attack laser for aim down sight speed, aim stability, aim walking steadiness, and the laser is visible to enemies. It's not really a big deal for getting a shot off quick. Put on the sniper scope and F-Tac sport comb for aim down sight speed. You get a slight reduction of aiming stability, which you won't even notice. And me personally, I use sleight of hand for the reload quickness. If you don't have sleight of hand, then you're gonna reload this very slow. I don't think that's ideal, but if you don't want to use that, you can use stipple grip tape for the aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. And this is basically the fastest, and I mean fastest, ADS speed for the Kar and sniper in general. Next, I use a weapon if you guys don't want to use quote-unquote meta type weapons. I mean, it's still meta, but it's basically like second place in regards to meta, and that's the Armaguerra 43. That's another Vanguard weapon. We're going to start out with the recoil booster for the increased fire rate. Now we're going to move to the body 315mm C, I'm guessing that's II or 2, C2, one or the other. That increases the damage, less damage fall off at long range, and bullet velocity. Now you get a slight reduction of recoil control and accuracy, but we will fix that later on. Put on the slate reflector just for the best vision. You won't have any issues seeing the enemy. Then you put on MP40 SA folding, and that increases the sprint to fire speed and movement speed. You get a reduction of initial firing recoil. We've put on hard scope to increase the recoil control. Some people chose to put on vital, completely up to you, and it might actually be really awesome to use vital to increase torso damage, but once again, that's up to you. If you decide to use either hard scope or vital, both are going to be very viable. I chose to put on quick for sprint speed, then polymer grip to increase the flinch resistance and accuracy and recoil during sustained fire. Remember, this does have quite a bit of recoil considering this is a very fast weapon. I put on the 9mm 60 round mags for the magazine capacity. You want to be able to shoot as much as possible, otherwise you're not going to have many bullets. Some people choose to actually use other weapons like the Russian shorts to increase the fire rate. I think that would be way too fast and too much recoil control. Another thing that I want to keep in mind is I don't think that either of these are necessary. I think that the 60 is the best choice. Put on lengthen to increase the bullet velocity, and the M1941 hand stop for the recoil control and accuracy to make a very controllable and easy to use Armaguerra. Trust and believe, this is a weapon you want to try out for yourself before, you know, going out into the battlefield. So maybe test it in pre-game lobby, something like that, and that may actually benefit you more than hurt you. Next, we're going to move on to another weapon that's actually slept on quite often, and that is the MAC-10. Now, I love the MAC-10. I think the MAC-10 is still an amazing gun to use. Completely up to you if you choose to use it, but I start out with agency suppressor, vertical recoil control, bullet velocity, and effective damage range. Now, we're going to use the 5.9 task force for the effective damage range, bullet velocity, and strafe speed. It reduces the vertical and horizontal recoil control, but the thing is, this thing is already a laser. It doesn't even matter. So I put on Tiger Team Spotlight for the movement speed and aim walking movement speed. The flashlight is visible to enemy and aiming stability, but that's not really a big deal. Put on the Raider stock for the ADS firing move speed, aim walking movement speed, and sprint to fire time with slight reduction of hip fire accuracy, which you won't even notice, and static 53 round drum. For the increased ammo capacity, you get a slight reduction of aim down sight speed and reload quickness, but this right here is basically the fastest movement MAC-10 that I would recommend. It still has basically zero recoil, so you can have no issue, and has a very small sight, so you'll very easily take out the enemies. So we're gonna move on to another two guns that I know people are wanting to see. So this is the MP40. I know people love using the MP40, and this is one of my personal favorites. So we start out with the recoil booster for the fire rate and slight reduction of accuracy. We're gonna fix that though. VDD 189mm short for the increased damage range, bullet velocity, and limb damage. You get a slight reduction of headshot damage, but it doesn't matter. You're probably gonna be taking more limb damages than headshot damages. Put on the slate reflector. Now, some people choose to use the Krosnik ISO 1M, and if you can see, then completely fine, up to you. If not, then I highly recommend using the slate reflector. I think that slight increase of ADS isn't really worth it in my opinion. Now, I use the Krosnik 33M folding for sprint to fire speed and movement speed, slight reduction of initial firing recoil. We fix that with brace to increase the initial firing recoil and cancel that out. Put on quick for the sprint speed, fabric grip for the aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed, and hip fire accuracy, and you sacrifice some accuracy overall, which doesn't even matter in this game. Put on this 7.62 Gorenko 45 round mads for the increase of recoil control, movement speed, aim down sight speed, and fire rate. And you see the cons is kind of big, but trust me, this is already a very powerful weapon, so these things aren't even really noticeable. You get a slight reduction of bullet velocity, damage, bullet penetration, and damage range, but you fix that with lengthened to increase the bullet velocity, and M1941 hand stop to increase the recoil control and accuracy. Last but not least, we're using the STG. Now, I love the STG so much. It's still such a great weapon. I've preferred the NZ41, so if you want to check out the NZ41 again, you can go back. That's sort of the beginning of this video. But if you guys don't have it, if you only have the STG unlocked, then this is the class to use. Now, I use the MX silencer for sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, vertical recoil control, and damage range. You put on the VDD 760mm 05B for highly accurate and controllable damage range, reduced scope sway and gun bob, and bullet velocity. We're going to move on to SVT 40 PU scope. Once again, this is the best attachment to use for ARs of the Vanguard variant. VDD 27 precision for the horizontal recoil control and aim down sight speed. And one thing I want to point out is you actually get increased accuracy with this scope. I don't think it's too noticeable, but that's just something to point out. I put on vital, but some people say that it doesn't even count on the STG. I think it does, but if you don't want to use that, you can use sleight of hand to reload even quicker. This can already reload incredibly fast, but to reload even quicker would be actually amazing. I decided to go with fully loaded to maximize my starting ammo, but if you want to use on hand to increase aim down sight speed, that's completely up to you, and that's fine as well. Polymer grip. Now, this increases flinch resistance and accuracy and recoil during sustained fire. Trust me, you want to have that on, especially having a scope. I chose the 7.62 Gorenko 50 round mags to increase the recoil control and accuracy, movement speed, aim down sight speed, and fire rate. You get a slight reduction of damage and bullet penetration. This is already an incredibly powerful weapon, so this is not a big deal. You increase the bullet velocity with lengthen, and M1941 hand stop increases the recoil control and accuracy, and this is the final weapon. This is honestly probably the best weapon to use for starters. You don't have to toggle anything or anything like that. This is probably the best AR to use in Warzone for beginners. So that is the top 7. Let me know if this helped you out, and if it did, I would greatly appreciate a like, or let me know what class you use in the comment section down below. And if you made it this far, comment Warzone is amazing.